Imagine this. You wake up one morning, not to the sound of an alarm or the warmth of sunlight, but to a silence so profound it feels like the world has stopped breathing. The air is heavy, almost tangible, as if it's waiting for something or someone. You sit up, your heart pounding, though you can't quite remember why. There's no immediate danger, no crisis at hand, yet you feel a gnawing unease, a restlessness that seems to have no source. It's as if something inside you is stirring, something you've spent years burying, ignoring, running from, and now it's here, demanding to be seen. You glance around the room, searching for something to anchor yourself to, a photograph, a book, a familiar object, but nothing feels real. It's as if the world has become a stage, and you're merely an actor playing a role you didn't audition for. You've been running for so long, haven't you? Running from the questions that haunt you in the quiet moments, running from the truths you're too afraid to face, running from the person you know you could be, but fear becoming. And now, here you are, standing at the edge of an abyss, staring into the void of your own existence. The question is, will you keep running, or will you finally stop? Here's the paradox. You've spent your entire life trying to outrun yourself, yet no matter how fast or far you go, you're always there. You can change cities, jobs, relationships, even identities, but the one constant is you. The person you're trying to escape is the same person who's doing the escaping. It's a loop, a maddening cycle that leaves you exhausted, disillusioned, and perpetually unsatisfied. You've been chasing happiness, success, love, meaning. But what if the very act of chasing is what's keeping you from finding them? What if the key to everything you've ever wanted lies not in running, but in stopping? Think about it. When was the last time you truly sat with yourself, without distractions, without excuse, without the noise of the world drowning out your thought? When was the last time you asked yourself the hard questions, the ones that make your stomach churn and your palms sweat? Questions like, who am I really? What do I truly want? What am I so afraid of? These are the questions that most of us avoid because they force us to confront the uncomfortable, the unknown, the parts of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden. But here's the thing. The more you run from these questions, the more power they have over you. They become shadows, lurking in the corners of your mind, shaping your decisions, your relationships, your life. And yet, there's a part of you, a small, quiet, but insistent part, that knows the truth. It knows that the only way to find peace, to find yourself, is to stop running, to turn around, face the shadows, and say, enough. But how? How do you stop running when running is all you've ever known? How do you face the parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding? How do you find the courage to stand still when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to move? This is the great question, the one that lies at the heart of every human struggle. What happens on the day you stop running from yourself? What happens when you finally stop chasing, stop hiding, stop pretending, and simply be? It's a question that's as terrifying as it is liberating, as painful as it is necessary, and it's a question that demands an answer, not from the world, not from others, but from you. So take a moment, breathe, feel the weight of the question settling over you, like a heavy blanket. This is not just a thought experiment. This is your life, the life you've been running from, the life you've been trying to outpace, the life that's waiting for you to stop and claim it. The journey ahead is not an easy one, but it's the only one that matters, because the day you stop running from yourself is the day you truly begin to live. But before we go any further, before we dive into the how and the why, we need to understand the forces that keep us running in the first place. What is it about ourselves that we're so afraid of? What is it about the world that makes running seem like the only option? And most importantly, what happens when we finally stop? These are the questions we'll explore next, as we peel back the layers of the human psyche and uncover the hidden forces that shape our lives. The answers may surprise you, and they may just change everything. To understand why we run from ourselves, we must first confront a truth so unsettling that it often remains buried beneath layers of distraction, denial, and self-deception. We are afraid of who we are, not the curated, polished version of ourselves we present to the world, but the raw, unfiltered, messy truth of our being. The parts of us that feel broken, unworthy, or unlovable. The parts that carry shame, regret, and fear. The parts we've disowned, suppressed, or exiled to the darkest corners of our psyche. These are the shadows we spend our lives running from, and they hold the key to understanding the great paradox of human existence. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, called this the shadow self, the unconscious aspects of our personality that we reject or deny. According to Jung, the shadow is not inherently evil or bad. It's simply the part of us that we've deemed unacceptable, either because society has told us it's wrong or because we've convinced ourselves it's too dangerous to acknowledge. But here's the catch. The more we try to suppress the shadow, the more power it gains over us. It seeps into our relationships, our decisions, our sense of self, shaping our lives in ways we don't even realize. And so, We run, not from the world, but from ourselves. But why? Why are we so afraid of our own shadow? The answer lies in a complex interplay of psychology, philosophy, and societal conditioning. At its core, the fear of self-confrontation is rooted in our innate desire for survival. From an evolutionary perspective, belonging to a group was essential for survival, and anything that threatened our place in the tribe, whether it was a taboo thought, an unpopular opinion, or an unacceptable emotion, was seen as a threat to our very existence. Over time, this instinctual need for acceptance became deeply ingrained in our psyche, shaping the way we see ourselves and the world around us. Fast forward to the modern era, and this primal fear of rejection has been amplified by societal forces that profit from our insecurity. We live in a world that constantly tells us we're not enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough. Social media, advertising, and even well-meaning friends and family feed us a steady diet of comparison and competition, leaving us perpetually dissatisfied with who we are. And so, we run, not just from our shadows, but from the relentless pressure to be someone we're not. But the problem goes deeper than societal conditioning. At its heart, the fear of self-confrontation is a fear of the unknown. To truly face ourselves is to step into uncharted territory, to confront the parts of us that we've spent a lifetime avoiding. It's to ask questions that have no easy answers. Who am I, beyond the roles I play? What do I truly want, beyond what I've been told to want? What am I capable of, beyond what I've been led to believe? These questions are terrifying because they force us to confront the possibility that we've been living a lie, that the life we've built, the identity we've crafted, is not who we really are. Philosophers have long grappled with this existential dilemma. Friedrich Nietzsche, for instance, warned of the dangers of living an unexamined life, urging us to become who we are. But becoming who we are requires us to first confront who we're not, to strip away the masks, the pretenses, the illusions that we've used to shield ourselves from the truth. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist philosopher, took this idea even further, arguing that we are condemned to be free. In other words, we have no choice but to confront the burden of our own existence, to take responsibility for who we are and who we become. And that, perhaps, is the most terrifying prospect of all. But the fear of self-confrontation isn't just philosophical, it's also deeply psychological. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure, a principle known as the pleasure-pain principle. When we confront our shadows, we inevitably experience emotional pain, shame, guilt, fear, regret. And so, our brain, in its infinite wisdom, does everything it can to protect us from that pain. It creates defense mechanisms, denial, projection, rationalization, that allow us to avoid facing the truth. It convinces us that running is the safer option, even when running only perpetuates our suffering. And yet, despite all these forces conspiring to keep us running, there's a part of us that knows the truth. Running doesn't work. It never had. The more we run, the more fragmented we become, until we're left feeling like strangers in our own lives. We may achieve success, accumulate wealth, or gain the approval of others, but none of it fills the void inside. None of it brings us closer to the one thing we truly crave: authenticity. Authenticity is the antidote to the fear of self-confrontation. It's the courage to show up as we are, without apology or pretense. It's the willingness to embrace our shadows, not as enemies, but as teachers. It's the recognition that we are not defined by our flaws, our mistakes, or our past, but by our capacity to grow, to learn, to evolve. And it's the understanding that the only way to find peace, to find ourselves, is to stop running and start facing the truth. But how? How do we overcome the fear, the conditioning, the psychological barriers that keep us running? How do we find the courage to confront our shadows and reclaim our authenticity? These are the questions we'll explore in the next section, as we delve into the unseen consequences of running from ourselves and the urgent need to break free. The journey ahead is not an easy one, but it's the only one that leads to true freedom. And it begins with a single, radical act: stopping. The act of running from ourselves is not a victimless crime. It leaves a trail of destruction, not just in our own lives, but in the lives of those around us. The consequences are often invisible, lurking beneath the surface of our daily routine, our relationships, and our sense of self. But just because we can't see them doesn't mean they aren't there. In fact, the unseen consequences of running from ourselves are some of the most powerful forces shaping our reality. Let's start with the most obvious yet overlooked consequence: fragmentation. When we run from ourselves, we fracture our identity into pieces. There's the person we are at work, the person we are with our friends, the person we are with our family, and the person we are when we're alone. These different versions of ourselves are often at odds with one another, creating an internal conflict that drains our energy and erodes our sense of wholeness. We become like actors in a play, constantly switching roles but never truly inhabiting any of them. Over time, this fragmentation leads to a profound sense of disconnection, not just from others, but from ourselves. This disconnection manifests in countless ways. It shows up in our relationship, where we struggle to form deep, authentic connections because we're too busy hiding behind masks. It shows up in our work, where we feel unfulfilled and uninspired because we're not living in alignment with our true values and passion. It shows up in our mental and emotional health, where we experience anxiety, depression, and a pervasive sense of emptiness because we're not addressing the root cause of our suffering, ourselves. But the consequences don't stop there. Running from ourselves also distorts our perception of reality. Cognitive biases, those mental shortcuts our brain uses to make sense of the world, are amplified when we're disconnected from our true selves. Confirmation bias, for example, leads us to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs while ignoring evidence that challenges them. This creates a feedback loop, reinforcing the illusions we've created to protect ourselves from the truth. We become trapped in a bubble of our own making, unable to see the world or ourselves as we really are. This distorted perception extends to our sense of identity. When we run from ourselves, we outsource our sense of worth to external sources: our job title, our social status, our bank account, our relationships. We become like chameleons, changing colors to fit in, to be accepted, to be loved. But this external validation is a poor substitute for the real thing. It's like trying to fill a bottomless pit with sand. No matter how much we pour in, it's never enough. And so, we keep running, chasing after the next achievement, the next relationship, the next high, hoping it will finally make us feel whole. But it never does. The unseen consequences of running from ourselves also extend to our physical health. The mind and body are deeply interconnected, and the stress of living a fragmented, inauthentic life takes a toll on our physical well-being. Chronic stress, which is often the result of internal conflict and unresolved emotional pain, has been linked to a host of health problems, including heart disease, weakened immune function, and even accelerated aging. In other words, the act of running from ourselves doesn't just harm our psyche, it harms our body as well. But perhaps the most insidious consequence of running from ourselves is the way it perpetuates the cycle of suffering. When we refuse to confront our shadows, we project them onto others. We blame our partners for our unhappiness, our bosses for our lack of fulfillment, our parents for our insecurity. We create enemies out of the people around us, not realizing that the real enemy is within. This projection not only damages our relationships, but also keeps us stuck in a cycle of blame, resentment, and victimhood. It's a vicious cycle, one that can only be broken by turning inward and facing the truth. The unseen consequences of running from ourselves are not just personal, they're societal. We live in a world that glorifies external success while ignoring internal fulfillment. We're taught to value wealth, power, and status over authenticity, connection, and meaning. This cultural conditioning reinforces the idea that running is the only option, that stopping to confront ourselves is a luxury we can't afford. But the truth is, we can't afford not to. The cost of running is too high, not just for us, but for the world around us. Think about it. How many conflicts, both personal and global, are rooted in the fear of self-confrontation? How many wars are fought? How many relationships are destroyed? How many lives are wasted because we're too afraid to face the truth about ourselves? The unseen consequences of running from ourselves are not just individual, they're collective. They shape the world we live in, the societies we build, the future we create. And until we confront the truth, until we stop running, we will continue to perpetuate the cycle of suffering for ourselves and for others. But here's the good news. The cycle can be broken. The unseen consequences of running from ourselves are not inevitable. They're a choice. And the moment we choose to stop running, to face the truth, to reclaim our authenticity, we begin to dismantle the forces that have been shaping our lives. It's not an easy choice, but it's the only one that leads to true freedom. So, how do we make that choice? How do we break free from the unseen forces that keep us running? The answer lies in a radical shift in perspective, one that challenges everything we've been taught to believe about ourselves and the world around us. It's a shift that requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. And it's a shift that begins with a single, powerful realization. The only way out is in. In the next section, we'll explore this radical shift in perspective and the steps we can take to break free from the cycle of running. We'll delve into the mindset shift, the practices, and the historical examples that show us what's possible when we stop running and start facing the truth. The journey ahead is not an easy one, but it's the only one that leads to true freedom. And it begins with a single, radical act: stopping. The decision to stop running from yourself is not a passive one. It is an act of rebellion, a defiance of the societal norms, psychological defenses, and existential fears that have kept you trapped in a cycle of avoidance. This rebellion is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, internal, and profoundly transformative. It begins with a single, radical shift in perspective. You are not your thoughts, your emotions, or your past. You are the awareness behind them. This realization is the key to breaking free. To understand this shift, we must first dismantle the illusion of the self. From a young age, we are taught to identify with our thoughts, our emotions, and our roles in society. We are told that we are our achievements, our failures, our relationships, our traumas. But this is a lie. These things are not who you are. They are simply experiences you have had. You are the observer, the witness, the consciousness that exists beyond all of it. This distinction is crucial because it allows you to separate yourself from the stories you've been telling yourself, stories that have kept you running. The first step in this rebellion is to cultivate awareness. Awareness is the light that illuminates the shadows, the tool that allows you to see yourself clearly for the first time. It begins with mindfulness, the practice of observing your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without judgment. When you become aware of your patterns, you begin to see how they have been controlling. You notice the ways you distract yourself, the excuses you make, the stories you tell yourself to avoid facing the truth. And in that noticing, you create space to choose differently, to act differently, to be differently. But awareness alone is not enough. The next step is acceptance. Acceptance is not resignation. It is the willingness to face reality as it is, without resistance or denial. It is the recognition that your shadows, your fears, your flaws, your mistake are not enemies to be defeated, but teachers to be embraced. This is where Carl Jung's concept of shadow work becomes essential. Shadow work is the process of integrating the disowned parts of yourself, of bringing them into the light so they can no longer control you from the dark. It is uncomfortable, even painful, but it is also liberating. As Jung famously said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The third step is responsibility. Responsibility is the acknowledgement that you are the author of your life, that no one else can save you or fix you or give you the answers you seek. This is where existential philosophy, particularly the work of Jean-Paul Sartre, becomes relevant. Sartre argued that we are condemned to be free, meaning that we have no choice but to take responsibility for our choices and their consequences. This can feel overwhelming, but it is also empowering. When you take responsibility, you reclaim your agency. You stop blaming others, stop waiting for external circumstances to change, and start taking action to create the life you want. But how do you take action when you've spent a lifetime running? The answer lies in small, deliberate steps. Breaking free from the cycle of avoidance is not about making grand gestures or dramatic changes. It is about building new habits, one moment at a time. Start by creating space in your day for stillness and reflection. This could be through meditation, journaling, or simply sitting in silence. Use this time to connect with yourself, to ask the hard questions, to listen to the answers that arise. Over time, these small moments of connection will add up, creating a foundation of self-awareness and self-trust. Another powerful tool is vulnerability. Vulnerability is the willingness to show up as you are, without masks or pretense. It is the antidote to the shame and fear that keep you running. Brené Brown, a researcher and author on vulnerability, describes it as the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you create the possibility for authentic connection, not just with others, but with yourself. You begin to see that your imperfections are not flaws to be hidden, but gifts to be embraced. Historical and cultural examples abound of individuals who broke free from the cycle of running and embraced their authentic selves. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, found meaning in the midst of unimaginable suffering by choosing to focus on his inner freedom rather than his external circumstances. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, is a testament to the power of perspective and the human capacity for resilience. Similarly, the poet Rumi wrote extensively about the journey of self-discovery, urging his readers to sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment, to let go of the need to control and instead embrace the mystery of existence. These examples remind us that breaking free is not about achieving perfection or eliminating suffering. It is about finding meaning and purpose in the midst of it. It is about reclaiming your power, not by controlling the external world, but by mastering your inner world. And it is about recognizing that the journey itself is the destination, that the act of stopping, of facing yourself, is the ultimate act of courage. But this rebellion is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing process. There will be moments when you stumble, when old patterns resurface, when the urge to run feels overwhelming. In these moments, remember that the goal is not to eliminate the shadows, but to integrate them. Each time you choose awareness over avoidance, acceptance over denial, responsibility over blame, you strengthen your capacity for authenticity. And each time you do, you move closer to the ultimate truth, the realization that you are not running from yourself. You are running toward yourself. In the final section, we will explore this ultimate truth, the profound, paradigm-shifting realization that redefines how you see yourself and the world around you. It is a truth so powerful that it makes all the struggles, all the pain, all the running suddenly worth it. It is the truth that sets you free. But before we get there, take a moment to reflect on the journey so far. What shadows have you been running from? What masks have you been wearing? And what would it feel like to finally take them off? The answers to these questions are the keys to your freedom, and the time to find them is now. The journey of stopping, of facing yourself, of breaking free from the cycle of running, leads to a single, profound realization. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe. This is not a poetic metaphor or a mystical abstraction. It is the ultimate truth, the final piece of the puzzle that makes everything else fall into place. It is the realization that redefines not only how you see yourself, but how you see reality itself. This truth has been echoed by philosophers, mystics, and scientists throughout history. The ancient Hindu texts speak of Tat Tvam Asi, thou art that, a declaration of the fundamental unity of the self and the cosmos. The Buddhist concept of anatta, or not self, points to the illusion of a separate, permanent identity. Even modern physics, with its exploration of quantum entanglement and the interconnectedness of all things, hints at this profound truth. But understanding it intellectually is not enough. To truly grasp it, you must experience it, not as a thought, but as a visceral, undeniable knowing. Here's what this realization means. The person you've been running from, the one you thought was broken, unworthy, or unlovable, was never real. It was a construct, a story, a collection of thoughts and emotions masquerading as a self. The shadows you've been avoiding, the fears you've been suppressing, the masks you've been wearing, they are not you. They are simply patterns, habits, and conditioning that you've mistaken for your identity. But beneath all of that, beneath the noise and the chaos, there is something infinitely deeper, infinitely more vast. There is awareness itself, the silent, unchanging presence that has been witnessing your entire life. This awareness is not personal, it is universal. It is the same awareness that exists in every living being, the same consciousness that animates the entire universe. When you realize this, the boundaries of the self begin to dissolve. You no longer see yourself as a separate entity, struggling against the world, but as an expression of the whole. Your fears, your desires, your struggles, they no longer feel like burdens to carry, but like waves in the ocean, rising and falling within the vastness of your being. This realization is not a destination, it is a doorway. It opens up a new way of being, a new way of relating to yourself and the world. Suddenly, the things that once seemed so important, the approval of others, the pursuit of success, the avoidance of pain, lose their grip on you. You begin to see them for what they are, fleeting, ephemeral, and ultimately meaningless in the grand scheme of things. What matters is not what you achieve or accumulate, but how deeply you can rest in the truth of who you are. This shift in perspective is not about denying your humanity. It is about transcending it. You still feel pain, still experience joy, still navigate the complexities of life, but now you do so from a place of rootedness, of stability, of peace. You no longer identify with the ups and downs of your experience. You observe them with curiosity and compassion, knowing that they are not who you are. This is the essence of freedom. Not freedom from suffering, but freedom within suffering. The implications of this realization are vast. It changes how you relate to others, seeing them not as separate entities, but as extensions of yourself. It changes how you approach challenges, understanding that they are not obstacles to overcome, but opportunities to grow. And it changes how you experience time, recognizing that the past and future are illusion, and that the only moment that truly exists is now. But perhaps the most profound implication is this: the act of running from yourself was never necessary. The person you thought you were running from, the one you thought was flawed, broken, or unworthy, was never real. The truth is, you were never separate from yourself to begin with. The running, the hiding, the avoiding, it was all a game, a dance, a play of consciousness. And now, the game is over. The dance has ended. The play has reached its final act. This is not the end of the journey, it is the beginning. Now that you've stopped running, now that you've faced yourself, now that you've realized the truth, life becomes a canvas, and you are the artist. You are free to create, to explore, to express yourself in ways you never thought possible. But this freedom comes with a responsibility, the responsibility to live authentically, to align your actions with your deepest truth, and to contribute to the world in a way that reflects the unity of all things. So, what does this look like in practice? It looks like showing up fully in every moment, not as a role or a mask, but as your true self. It looks like embracing vulnerability, not as a weakness, but as a strength. It looks like letting go of the need to control, to achieve, to prove, and instead trusting the flow of life. And it looks like living with gratitude, not for what you have, but for the simple fact that you exist. This is the ultimate truth. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. You are not a fragment of the universe. You are the universe in human form. And the day you stop running from yourself is the day you realize this. It is the day you come home, not to a place, but to a state of being. It is the day you discover that you were never lost, never broken, never separate. You were always whole, always complete, always free. And so, the journey ends where it began, with you. Not the you that you thought you were, but the you that you truly are. The you that exists beyond thought, beyond fear, beyond time. The you that is infinite, eternal, and unchanging. The you that is, and always has been, enough. This is the final, most powerful realization. It is the truth that sets you free, and it is yours to claim, not in some distant future, but right here, right now. All you have to do is stop running. All you have to do is look within. All you have to do is be.